What is up, everybody? Welcome back to today's quick tip. We're in the series of mixing. I'm super excited to spend another video with you talking about my process. And today, let's get into the way I like to mix and the way I learned it from Graham Cochran over at the Recording Revolution. Super helpful guy. I agree with almost all of his philosophies on mixing and the way he views music and just affordability, sticking with what works for you, the bare necessities, all that good stuff. You can find that on his channel. And he's inspired thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And I'm no exception. So let me talk about top-down mixing. That's the way I approach it. So there's a few ways that you can approach mixing, right? Mixing, again, is kind of like the active balancing tracks and how you make them all fit with each other, the processing you apply to the tracks to make them fit nicely. But overall, if you look at it from a macro level, there are a few approaches. So a lot of people basically apply processing to one track at a time and make each track sound as good as it can in the context of the mix before moving on to the very next track. And then they do this and then they move on to the group tracks. So for example, if there's a bunch of strings, right? If there's a big list of string tracks you have, you can actually send all of those or create the output for those tracks to a separate string bus, string group. And then you can process that group, thereby affecting all of the string tracks, right? And then after that, after the groups, all these different groups sum up together to lead to the master fader, which is the final step in the chain. And that's what you see here on the right here, the stereo out. That is the final step. That's kind of like the final boss, if you will. And he oversees everything. He makes sure everyone is treated well and everything like that. So you can see here that the master bus, I actually didn't put that many plugins on it because to me, and actually to many mixers, the less plugins you have, the better. Let's get into that in a second. I was talking about approaches. Sorry, I got off guard. So the first approach is to treat one track at a time and then work your way up to the groups and then go to the master. Another way is to start from the master bus first, get a solid sounding mix from there, work down to the groups, and then work down to the individual tracks after that. So if there's anything or any individual instruments that are standing out as being bad, or if there's something that doesn't sound good, if there's artifacts or anything like that that's jumping out at you, then you can go to that one instrument and treat it that way. But by treating the master fader first, you already have a good sounding mix already, right? So, and then a hybrid between the two is kind of starting with the groups and then, processing those in a way that you like. And then, you can treat the master as you want it and then the individual tracks afterwards or even before the master. Everyone has their own workflow, but I find top-down mixing the fastest because I've tried the different ways, but I find that treating the master fader first gets me about 80% of the way there, and that's quite a bit, right? So let's just have a quick listen to this part here, and I'm just going to play this middle section. Let me turn off these three plugins here. I'm going to leave the Ozone on there because that's kind of the limiter. So if I take that off, it's going to make the whole entire mix duck down in volume. So I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to play the track a little bit, and then I'm going to turn those on, and you can hear what a difference this makes. Okay, now here we go. Let's turn it on. Do you hear how everything is a little bit more punchy and it's just a little bit cleaner? So let's do that one more time. I'll play this part again. Maybe I'll go here. I'll keep it on and then I'll turn it off. And then back on. So that everything brightens up a little bit. And in case you're wondering what these plugins are, so the compressor is just a little stock compressor from Logic, and I like to keep it at a relatively low threshold because I want it to have a nice, not too much of an effect on the overall mix. It's just containing the very peaks of the sound. So if it goes up a little too much, I can just contain that and press it down just a little bit. I want a nice balanced mix. And then next is the mix centric from Waves. This is really, really cool. Like there's EQ, there's compression going on, there's saturation, there's a whole bunch of stuff, and it sounds good on pretty much every single mix I've used it on. You just turn it up to the degree where you want to clean up the mix and make it punchy and sound nice, and it just does its job. I also wanted to add a little bit of extra saturation and tone to it, some extra harmonics, so I just turned it up a little bit here. Also from Waves as well. And then finally the Ozone 8 Elements. This is your overall limiter. It's like your master, easy master. You just do some EQ with there. You can, if you want, and then some imager. So bring it to the left, goes to mono, and then more stereo this way. And then maximizer is bringing it up to commercial volume. So that's how I process the master fader in this case. Sometimes I'll do even more, like I'll use an EQ or whatever. Here you see my directional mix. So this I put it on if I want to mix in mono, which I usually do, because I want all my EQ decisions, all my compression, everything that I do, I want it to be effective. I don't want to just turn knobs for the sake of doing it. So this forces me to hear things up the middle only. So if I can hear a difference in mono, then I know it's making a difference in stereo. So let me just turn it on for a second and you can hear what it sounds like. Right, super narrow. So if I can hear an EQ choice made there in mono, then I know in stereo it's going to definitely translate. And then turn it off. Suddenly it just fills out, right? And then it just sounds a lot better. Okay. And then after that, I went down to my percussion and I was like, okay, well, all I really want is just a little bit of compression on the percussion because it feels punchy enough to me and I just want to contain it a little bit. And that's all. I didn't really create group tracks for any other instruments because I wanted to process them a little bit differently, each one. And that's it. So the most processing I have is actually on the vocals themselves because those are recorded raw with no processing on them. Every other instrument, like the orchestral instruments, they've already been treated. They've been processed by the different developers. So they already treated them how they want it to sound, and it already sounds like really professional out of the box. So those I didn't have to do too much. As you can see, there's very, very few plugins, just those EQs right there to clean up any unnecessary low end or anything like that. So hopefully that helped. That's my process of top-down mixing. I hope you enjoy. Again, check out Graham Cochran, super good, nice guy, and amazing resource. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in tomorrow's video where we talk a little bit more about EQ. So see you then. Have a great day. Bye-bye.